All right, welcome back to the secret underground lair. I've got a new bit put into the router. It's rather than a 1/2 inch roundover, I've gone to a 3/4 inch roundover bit. Thank you, Keith, for sending that router bit, a collection of router bits, so they're being put to use. I cut a little bit larger hole down here to help evacuate the chips with the dust collection system. That was just a large hole and when the router got low, it was taking up most of the hole. So I wasn't getting able to suck up the dust as well as I think I could have. So hopefully that change will make a difference. The other thing was pointed out to me, and I should have noticed that and done something about it, was getting rid of the power cord for the router. That had just kind of been dangling off that side, and I was moving it all the time, and it caught a couple times on the edge of the piece. So that's now kind of attached to the cable chain. It doesn't run through the cable chain. It's a little too thick, but it's better than what I had. So I hope that will help, and it's out of the way of the router. So that's the important thing. So I'm about to connect all this, get the hose back on, turn it all on. The G-code is loaded. Let's make our first contour pass. Alrighty, things were going well until they weren't. So you can see contour here. I'm quite happy with the shape of this. This is coming out really well. It's a much more round shape on this end, a little narrow on the bottom. Where things started to go a little screwy was right in here. We started losing steps along this axis and went over here a little far. I think I'm okay. I can recover from that. There may be a little bit of repair work to do up in this area, but I think we can survive that. I'm going to restart this print from about here. I'm going to restart the cut from about here, just to finish up this section, take a look at what kind of damage we have here, and if I need to do any filler or any repair, I can do that. So, I'll be back in a second. All right, the source of the problem has been found. Those little set screws on this motor have become loose. So this is controlling the y-axis, and yeah, the set screws just came loose, and as a result, things were just allowed to spin. So we'll fix that up and get it back in, and away we go. All right, there's round 2. That went much better. Okay, the little problem that I had up here was actually a physical machine fault, not a G-code problem. So that has been addressed, and I think we're going to be okay from this point forward, unless there's another machine failure. So I'll just keep plugging away at this. I'll come back. This is at 22 millimeters. So first cut here was 24, just 1 millimeter below the surface. So now we're at 22 millimeters, next cut's at 20, and so on right down to 6. Okay, so there are all of the rough contour passes made from 24, 22, and so on, right down to 8 millimeters. Our next pass at 6 millimeters is going to be going the full width and 1 millimeter at a time. So we're going to go much slower across the length of the guitar here. And this pass will be doing the full sculpting up and down. So we're going up, down, left, right, front to back. So it's going to be full motion, 3-axis movement on this last pass. A little bit slower rate of travel, but I'll set you up again for another time-lapse video of at least part of this. It'll take a while. So in a previous video, I think I had mentioned that there was a little bit of movement on the Z-axis on the motor mount up here, and I'd have to look into that. And I thought before I start doing this whole big cut across here, I better look into that motor mount and see what's going on. So far I found 2 problems. One is the where I had a T-nut associated with the threaded rod, I had adequate clearance on the back of the sled here. However, since installing this little brass T-nut associated with the lead screw, or the lead screw nut, that was just a little bit wider, and as a result was binding. It actually gouged out here and was continuing to be binding as it traveled up and down. So that's problem number 1. Problem number 2 with the lead screw, I think it's just slightly bigger than the threaded rod, and as a result I'm getting a little bit of binding right there. It wants to hit, and when I bring it over, bring it over enough to clear it, it starts to bind. And that particularly comes into play when I attach the router to that lower of the 2 brackets. So when the router's attached to that, that just kind of forces the that lead screw back, and it binds on the bottom there, and you can see some marks where it has been binding. So I'm going to do something about that. Not exactly sure what that will be yet, but take some consideration and make some changes here before embarking on this big cut. So stay tuned. So we're getting our speed as fast as the Marlin code is going to let us move. So I think we're in great shape now to move our full contour cut. So I'm going to set us up, and away we go with that big cut. So, another case of working well until it wasn't. Everything's going well. The problem that I have here is that our clamp on my Z-axis has slipped down. In fact, it's not just the clamp, it's the entire, this little rubber hose that I've got here connecting the linear rod to our stepper motor has slipped down. The router was, the weight of the router was being borne entirely by that clamp. Apparently that's a problem. So what I'm going to need to do is support this linear rod at the base. I'm going to put on a bearing so that it doesn't drag down. But that has irreparably damaged our blank. I'll pull it all apart and show you what we've got now. So here's how our cut was progressing. We're making really nice headway through here. And then our time we got to this point, the clamp let go and we weren't able to bring the rotor back up, and so we just plowed into both ends. So I don't believe that would be salvageable. However, what I'm going to do is make some changes to the Z-axis again, put in that bearing to keep the linear rod in position, and then I'll run this, I'll complete the run of this, make sure it's going to work. One other thing I want to look at, and it may be a setting that I have in the G-code, where I didn't expect this to come out quite this far. I was only expecting it to come out to about here. So I'm extending this a little beyond what I expected it to be. So I'm going to double check that. That may be exactly right, but I'm going to double check it, make sure. Yeah, and then actually I think that probably is exactly right as I look at that. But I'll double check it. I last left off, we were going to modify the Z-axis a little bit again. And what I have now is a bearing at the bottom of the shaft. So the linear rod here and the rotor, it'll be this bearing that will be supporting the rotor. So the outer surface of the bearing rests on the bottom of the sled, and the center of the bearing, the shaft, the linear rod has been tapered a little bit to fit into that center of the bearing so that it can spin freely. The bearing will spin freely and support the weight of the rotor. So I've removed all the weight from our little stepper motor at the top and from our little rubber drive mechanism. So that should give us a little bit more consistency and make it better overall. So let me put the rotor in, mount it all up, and make another cut. So there is the inside profile cut. And apart from this huge blunder here, this turned out really, really well. I'm running my hand through these curves and they're just really nice. They're just exactly what I would have hoped for. It's beautiful to run your hand over that. And I had one little glitch here where I'd put in a little bottom plate to support the bearing, and I hadn't glued that in. I was kind of hoping the friction would keep it in place. Obviously that's not enough, so go back to plan B. We'll fix that in place. Because that dropped, we lost a little bit of depth here. Really of no consequence, but just something to fix. And that blemish that we had here, you can see there's very little of it visible. So it's a minimal bit of damage that was done there. The main problem is this one here. So I don't know what we can do about that, if that's recoverable or not. Probably not. So this becomes another test piece. Pity, because it was reasonably good wood. But yeah, it's all learning, right? It's all learning. So you can see the profile of our guitar there pretty clearly. happy with that shape. I do like that shape a little better than the last one we did. So now it's going to be a case of flip it over and we'll do the top side or outside.